Pat, where do you see tech in 2026?
There's no question that the adoption of AI is going to be more infiltrated into the firms that are 100% against it. And I love to tell stories about how some firms are so afraid because of the obvious bad press that some of the attorneys have gotten with research that they won't even use AI in Lexis or Westlaw. So I do see that there's going to be that peer pressure ultimately.
One of the things that was interesting to me, Sundar Pichai, the Google CEO, was asked about AI, and they said, it's bringing so much efficiency. Are you going to lay people off? And he said, no, it's quite the opposite. He said, we've got about 10% more efficiency. And so that's going to allow us to do 10% more of the projects that we couldn't get on our budget for the year. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Ironically, we're doing a technology topic this month, and we're using a new technology, and there's a few kinks, but it's great to see everybody. And we've got an awesome panel. Our topic today is Future Ready Law Firms Discover the Latest Legal, Tech, and AI Innovations. My name is Jay Berkowitz, and I'm going to host today, and I'm going to take you through a couple new technologies that are affecting marketing, and then we'll get right to our all-star panel. So here's one of the newest things happening in Google today, and it's called zero-click search. And if you searched who won the Blue Jays game last night or who won the baseball game last night, great news, the Blue Jays won. At least great news for Daniel and I. If you're an LA Dodgers fan, you're not as happy. But the interesting thing that's going on here is Google gives us the score of the game. Google gives us the box score. Google gives us links to YouTube videos, and Google owns YouTube. And for the majority of people, that's going to answer your question. So we call it a zero-click search because nobody needs to click anywhere else to get any more information if that's all you're looking for. Now, the big loser in all of this is ESPN and Major League Baseball and the media outlets, because they're not going to get additional traffic from this. Here's another example. What's the weather forecast? And Google does a great job telling us the current weather, telling us the weather for the next several hours or the next several days. And the Weather Channel traffic is down about 100%. They're down in about half. So we're calling it zero-click search again because Google's giving us the answer. Now, what does that mean for us in marketing and legal marketing? Google is also giving us the answer to our questions. How do I choose a car accident attorney? And Google's showing us their AI overviews, which is their version of a ChatGPT answer, and they're answering the question for us. Now, the good news is they are featuring our websites, our lawyers' websites in this instance. They're showing you their homework. They're showing you the sites they use to compile the answer. Here's a link to Jeff McDonald. I think Jeff is with us today. And here's a link to his website. That's one of the websites Google used to compile that answer. So this is a new SEO opportunity, a new search engine link, if you will, that's showing up in the new Google environment. Now, ChatGPT is doing the same thing. They started showing links to clients because they were getting all these trademark or violations of using rights violations of using other people's websites without disclosing where they got that information. So again, this is a free SEO click opportunity that you can get on ChatGPT. Now, in terms of the size of the opportunity, Google is still by far and away the big dog. Google has 19.7 billion searches every day between Google and YouTube. And Google owns YouTube, of course. So ChatGPT has grown. They're actually the number 5 website in the world today, but it's still only 5% of the number of searches in the marketplace. So we're going to focus a little bit on Google. And this is a new thing we're calling AEO, Answer Engine Optimization. So how do you come up in those searches? The first thing is you answer questions, because AEO is answer engine optimization. Like, as opposed to search engine, these are answer engines. So here's an example of Jeff answering a question. what happens if an Uber hits you, and we optimize that video on YouTube. We use that video on a blog on his website. We use it on all his socials and on his Google Maps. So it's very effective, and you're sending Google signals that we're really good at answering questions. So here's another example of where an answer to a question was used by Google to compile that answer. The second opportunity is to become an authority. And we're seeing in Google searches like, how do I choose a car accident attorney? Videos and Reddit and Quora question and answer websites coming up in the Google searches. So our YouTube channel has over 1 million views, and we're becoming an authority in the eyes of Google. My friend Jeff Hampton has 473,000 subscribers and millions of views each month, where he answers questions about legal issues in criminal law. And he also has a separate law firm where he does Airbnb attorney, and both of those have been super successful. You want to become an expert. You want to be published in things like Super Lawyers, your local Chamber of Commerce, your local bar association. If you can, get a Wikipedia page. They're really hard to get, but definitely seen as an expert. And getting cited in local articles will double your results in both the LocalPack, the Google Maps, and AI overviews. So local PR, local community activities are very, very effective for becoming an expert. The third thing is, what can you do on the website? Well, you can use detailed explanations, real examples, bulleted lists, frequently asked questions, come up with proprietary data, a survey that you publish and link to your website. Website code. There's a code called schema code with over 800 different schemas, things like the local business schema, the legal service schema, attorney schema, FAQ schema. And all of these things come up, were developed by Google and Yahoo, these schemas. This is simple code that sends Google and Yahoo and all the other search engines a message. We're a local business. Here's where you find us. We're a legal service. Here's our FAQ page. And so when you use this code that the search engines are looking for, such as the FAQ schema or the article schema, you're sending them a message like, here's the simple page and here's the description of what this page is. So just to sum up AEO, the first thing we got to be alert to is there's a new thing called zero-click search, where Google's going to answer the question. But we have an opportunity to come up in those answers by answering questions in our SEO or our AEO, building authority, and things we can do on the website. Now, one other technology I want to talk about is optimizing intake. So if Google's showing fewer searches and Google's sending, there's zero click in some of those search instances, how do we get more cases? Well, one thing we can do is we can optimize our intake, do a better job with the calls we do get. And we've developed a proprietary bot at 10 Golden Rules. It's an AI product that we've created. And what we did is we studied 5 of the world's leading expert intake coaches. And we monitor our clients' calls, and we use that technology to give coaching to the intake team to get better at emotional engagement, at closing, and getting better with our technology. We've also developed another proprietary technology called TGR Boomerang, short for 10 Golden Rules. Like the boomerang, the Australian toy, you throw out and it comes back. Every firm misses phone calls. And even if you think you're great at intake, when people hear the Google recording, a lot of them hang up. Also, when people fill out the form on your website, you've got an opportunity to grab that information and call that person right back. Now, if you don't check your email for a couple hours, that lead's pretty much going to go dead. They're going to call another law firm. So our TGR Boomerang software grabs those leads, both the missed calls and the form fills, text them to your intake department. You can call those folks right back. So those are a couple technology things going on at 10 Golden Rules. Last part for me, I want to invite you all to join us live March 16th and 17th at our event called TGR Live, Growth Strategies for Law Firms. And we hope you all can join us. It's in a beautiful location in Delray Beach, which is right beside Boca Raton and beside West Palm Beach. And it's a beautiful location called the Opal Grand on the water We did the event there last year. Everybody loved the location. We've got some amazing rock star speakers booked so far. Steve Gerson's going to talk about 4 ways to get millions more in your cases. Rob Levine also has a multi-million-dollar firm, is going to talk about artificial intelligence for law firms. Stacey Brown Randall's amazing. She's got a new book about how to get referrals without even asking. Chris Keller is going to talk about 5 disciplines to transform your life and your practice. And Cassidy Lewis is amazing. She's a CMO for a law firm, and she's going to talk about the CMO role. So that's my introduction. And now I'd like you to meet our all-star panel. Pat Gimenez has a business called LegalPat, and she's going to talk to us today about picking your technology and rolling it out. Next up, we're going to go to my friend Ed Kirk from Supio, and they're an AI that actually works in doing demands, case management, medical chronologies, and tons of law firms are using Supio. They're one of the leaders in this area. Then we're going to meet Manny Griffiths, and Manny has a product called Hona that's really, really good once you sign a client on to communicate with your clients and answer all their questions. And the number one bar complaint is, what's the status of my case? And so this technology and this AI is really great at communicating with clients. And then 2 brand new technologies. Daniel Steinberg's going to introduce LawBroker, and Jeff Zigman has a product called TRUEclaims. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Pat is going to try and share. If not, I will share her presentation.
Thanks, Jay. Today we're driving into how law firms can make smarter software decisions. My presentation is built on the LegalPat Migration Toolkit, which helps firms navigate the complex legal tech landscape. We'll cover strategies, common pitfalls, readiness assessments, and how to evaluate platforms and vendors effectively. This might sound like an easy process, for there will be plenty of potholes to avoid on your journey. And trust me, it's more like trying to merge onto I-95 during rush hour. We're going to help you avoid the pileups. Everyone knows the legal tech market is saturated. There are over 200 platforms out there claiming to be case management software, and every one of them swears they're best. But let's be honest, no single platform fits every firm. Switching is expensive, risky, and vendors, present company excluded, tend to oversell. Our goal is to cut through the noise and help you make informed, confident decisions that you can live with for the next 10 to 20 years. So this is a short list of frequent mistakes and traps that we see firms fall into repeatedly. The biggest failure is choosing based on price alone. Next is ignoring integrations, underestimating training, and being dazzled by demos. We've seen this movie before. Firms pick the cheapest option, skip the training, and then wonder why no one's using the software. The toolkit helps you avoid these pitfalls, focusing on long-term fit and operational alignment, not just surface level appeal. You want to invest in products that are going to grow with you, not ones you're going to grow out of. Before you even look at software, assess your internal readiness. So what does that really mean? It's funny, I think this slide needs to be reordered because I feel that the staff and ownership buy-in is the elephant in the room. If you haven't taken the time to include the frontline workers in what could automate their responsibilities in order to allow them to take on a heavier workload, the other two won't matter. So is your infrastructure up to task? And yes, even though everything's moving to the cloud, your IT still matters. Microsoft just pulled the plug on some core tools. So if your infrastructure is running on duct tape and hope, we need to talk. The toolkit includes a readiness checklist to help you evaluate these areas. Budget clarity and contingency planning are often overlooked. I just spoke with a firm last week that had been given a proposal for the purchase of a software product based on Salesforce. The licenses were reasonable, but the implementation, let's just say that came with 2 commas. You need to know your limits and prepare for the unexpected. Contingency planning should include alternative project leaders who can make quick and final decisions. The toolkit includes a worksheet to help you assess readiness and identify blockers before you commit to a platform. So when comparing platforms like Clio, FileVine, Smart Advocate, Clara, or SharePoint, use a structured scorecard. Features your firm needs may only be available by some vendors, and you may not have heard about others because they are relatively new on the market or focused on another practice type. Focus on what matters to your firm, whether that's case intake, document management, automations, analytics, support, and pricing transparency. I'm working with another firm in Florida who asked me to put together a pricing budget based on the proposal they had received. And based on the terms of the contract, they were pleasantly surprised to see that the increase for the next 10 years was under their proposed budget. So this is where the scorecard becomes your best friend. It keeps you focused when the demo starts to feel like a Las Vegas magic show. So ask tough questions. What data formats are supported? If running a legacy software, you're probably running an older version of Microsoft Access, Microsoft SQL, or Sybase databases. That might be one of the ones that Microsoft just submitted end of support for. Don't think that doesn't matter when you're moving to a web-based product, because your vendor may only accept Excel CSV files for data conversion. And how are you going to be able to provide one of those? Are they SOC 2 or HIPAA compliant? You've probably heard this again and again if you have looked at cloud software. Client data confidentiality is one of your paramount concerns. You now must also ask whether AI products are learning off of your data. Can you or will they integrate with your tools? So some products want to limit external access to their product, which means there's no integration capability. And then what are the long-term costs, like the budget that I went through with my client in Florida? The toolkit includes a vendor question guide to help you uncover what's often hidden in demos. So LegalPat is vendor neutral, or as I like to refer to myself, as the Switzerland of software. So we're not here to sell you a platform. We're here to help you not regret the one that you pick. My team of consultants have over 30 years of experience in the legal industry, and we use our hands-on experience to tailor your journey to finding software to enable your firm to be more productive. Our toolkit and consulting approach are designed to support long-term success, not just implementation. We're here to help you build systems that align with your mission. So our expert guidance makes a difference. As my client Brian Lebovic says, you'd be foolish not to get a consultant fluent in analysis and integration. The LegalPat migration toolkit is powerful. Having a trusted advisor isn't just nice. It's the difference between a smooth launch, and I really like this, and a 6-month migraine. This testimonial speaks to the value of having a trusted advisor. Software decisions affect every part of your firm and every person in your firm. So don't go it alone. So yes, there's potholes, but with the toolkit and a good guide, you'll cruise right through. The LegalPat Migration Toolkit gives you the structure, and our consulting gives you the expert support and benefits. We will help you avoid the Las Vegas magic show. So we also want to offer to all attendees today and everyone who happens to see this recording, we would like to offer a free copy of the Migration Toolkit. And if you would like to send an email to patrice.gimenez@legalpat.com, I'd be happy to send it to you. The toolkit can be used during your demos and your planning sessions, and it will help you score your readiness, help you shortlist the platforms with confidence that you should be focusing on, and ask the right questions. Thanks, Jen.
I've had the pleasure of hanging out with Ed at several conferences and getting to know him really well. He's been on our podcast and I think a few webinars before. And he's actually an attorney who transferred to work with this amazing new technology startup, which is well beyond startup now, called Supio. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself and talk to us a little bit about the AI landscape for actually doing legal work.
Lovely. Thank you, Jay. And I believe, well, I was very glad to speak at TGR last year. It was a great conference. As I said, Jay, you're a consummate programmer. You know how to keep things interesting, even keeping us to 8 minutes and 8 slides. So I'm not going to waste any more time. So as Jay said, I spent the last 15 years in legal as a litigation lawyer for the first part, later in legal technology, where I am now. So I've seen both sides of the profession, managing clients, cases, deadlines, and then also in the last 8 years, helping firms adopt new technology to get an edge. So at Supio, we're focused on one thing, using AI to help plaintiff firms win higher settlements faster without burning out your teams. And that's what I'm going to talk through today. Before getting into Supio, or at least the product, I just want to frame who we are, what we've learned from spending time inside plaintiff firms. Across the board, firms are feeling pressure from two sides. Externally, tort reform, aggressive insurers, tighter margins, and internally, that constant struggle to scale that Pat talked about. Delivering great client outcomes, high quality service while increasing case volume is a hard task to crack. And whether it's a straightforward MBA, complex med-mal case, or mass tort, the work itself is getting harder. I think we deal with more and more documents all the time. So this is where Supio comes into the frame. And when our founders looked at the problems lawyers face, they didn't just see documents, they were looking at data. They're software engineers from Microsoft. So that's their background. Their realization created two opportunities. First, transforming documents into structured data so firms can make data-driven decisions. Second, unlocking productivity for every person in the firm, helping them work smarter, litigate more effectively, and focus on outcomes. We'll talk more on that, peel back the onion. To build that, we've worked with and partnered with some of the leading law firms in North America, in leading PI firms, mass tort firms, medical malpractice focused firms, to build tools that actually met the needs. So I'll talk through that. Pat sort of talked about choosing a legal vendor, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. Suffice to say that as there are so many vendors touting their AI capabilities, open up the hood. Do they have AI and legal experts? Have they got some great firms on their roster? Some technical trial lawyers as well? Do they have the trust of those firms? Can they understand the nuances of your practice types? They're not just bundling in together. Can they do both pre-lit and litigation? And are they going to take care of you? Are they going to onboard you? Are they going to train you? Are they going to stay with you through the journey? And even consult on complex cases. Something I was very proud of is helping a firm during trial for a wrongful death case. They needed to crunch through the court transcripts to help them respond to 7 direct motions during a 2-week trial. So you can imagine how busy they were. Supio helped them navigate that data quickly, respond to those motions in real time on the way to a $24 million verdict. So that's the kind of technical assistance that we can assist with our firms as well. So where's this all going? I think we're all saying that this technology is moving at a breakneck speed. Models are getting smarter. They're learning to reason, not just predict. They understand context, nuance, and intent in the same way lawyers do. And the platforms are taking on more in the way that they start as kind of drafting assistants And now they're becoming more end-to-end workflow automation, chronologies, deposition analysis, demand drafting, litigation prep. We're going to see lots more talk about agents, research agents, drafting agents, agents that can interact with clients, I'm sure, too. And third, the accuracy and the personalization are going to get better and better. Precision is obviously key. Personalization around your law firm, the way you operate, the way you draft documents, tone, all of those things, building technology around the way you want it to work, that's going to be really exciting. And that's our focus: smarter reasoning, broader capability, personalized precision. This is where we're at today, focusing in both pre-litigation around helping you to analyze cases quicker in the sense of highlighting missing documents, gaps in treatment, undiagnosed injuries, building up a ledger around the bills, helping you to draft demands instantly. And then when you move into litigation, giving you everything at your fingertips with more drafting tools, helping you to with a discovery suite. So prepping for depositions using Supio live in depositions to help you ensure that you're getting every point across and every answer you need. And also interacting with mediation or in trial, helping you to push back on defense arguments so that you're not sort of pushed back, you're on your feet, confident at all times. And this is where we're at today in terms of where we're in our support for firms. You know, we've supported close to 30,000 cases, over $1 billion in settlements. You see there that in the corner there, that $495 million verdict was a mass tort baby formula case. We helped Tor Herman navigate 40,000 pages of medical records to that victory against some of the toughest defense lawyers in the country. So, and I just want to also, before I leave you, highlight that, yes, maybe you've heard technologies out there that do demands, that do chronologies, or maybe you use a ChatGPT to do it and you say that's just fine, ignoring the risks of your client's data becoming part of the training engine for ChatGPT. But why Supio? Why us instead of all the other guys who are out there? We designed for accuracy beyond human levels. We built an AI platform with humans in the loop, expert who define what good looks like and continuously calibrate performance. This human plus machine model ensures every output is benchmarked against real legal expertise, not unchecked automation. That's why Supio understands right from wrong, facts from opinions. It knows a defense witness statement doesn't carry the same weight as a doctor's note, and it grasps the nuance between case types. In MBAs, medical records are facts. In MedMal, those same records demand interpretation. In mass torts, the models look for specific injuries and causal patterns. It's not just about faster. Every AI can do faster. The value is in the accuracy because that's what drives winning settlements and judgments. And that's Supio. So thank you so much for hearing me for the last sort of 8 minutes. I hope, Jay, it was 8 minutes and I succeeded. If you'd like to reach out to us, here's.
Oh, that was awesome, Ed, and right on time. I just want to ask you one question, maybe dumb it down for us and just tell us a story about a firm, maybe like a mid-sized firm that's using the product, a case result that they got.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about a firm that we both know in Pennsylvania, and something that they highlighted to us that Supio is helping them to do is uncover hidden value. A lot of firms these days grade their cases A to D and E, in terms of how they value them.
Yep.
And he was saying that they had a case that they valued at $25K, meaning that perhaps psychologically to the attorneys at the firm, this isn't a case I need to put too much resource in. Supio highlighted, though, a numbness and tingling in the undiagnosed injury set that we flagged for them. That helped them to increase the value to $250K. And so that's sort of that tangible insight that helps firms as they're scaling to stay on top of any issues that may slip through the cracks. A bill from a hospital that may slip through. They may have settled and then they have sort of embarrassment where they're trying to claw back a settlement from the client. Those types of things, giving them a second pair of eyes to their cases.
Yeah, and stick around for the panelists till the end and we'll take questions from the audience. But one other quick question, like if a small firm or even a large firm hasn't jumped into AI yet, what do you recommend? What's something simple to get started?
I think speaking to firms, I've heard firms who are doing it in a considered way start with a Perplexity or a ChatGPT, and they give them guardrails. They say, hey, this is the types of tasks, start experimenting. What we're trying to do is we're trying to uncover the wins that will help speed up the way we work today. And then they come to a company like ours, knowing what they're looking to achieve, knowing what the technology can do. And now they just need a partner who knows medical records like we do, has that technical know-how to really help them take it to the next level.
Awesome. Well, Ed, great as always.
Thank you, Jay.
And thank you for being here. And don't go anywhere because we will open up the entire panel to questions at the end. And so hopefully Manny can master the technology, get his camera on and his mic. Awesome.
How we doing? How's that?
Sound crystal clear. Look great. You want to go ahead and share your slides and teach us all a little bit about 5-star customer service.
Absolutely. So hi, I'm Manny. I'm co-founder and CEO of Hona, and going to talk a little bit about 5-star service and how to win the client journey. I want to start off really with two things. One, like challenges that we see happening with attorneys and client journey, and then like why this is important. And so I'll start off with kind of a challenge that we're seeing in the market. Consumers, about 10 or 15 years ago, there started to be a lot of apps come out. I've referenced 3 here. I've got DoorDash, Amazon, and Domino's Pizza. And these 3 apps are giving status updates to consumers on where their food delivery is, exactly where their package is at in the process, and even what stage of the process their pizza is being cooked at. And so I think what happened in the market a few years ago, a lot of law firms can attest to this, is that consumers started to expect more from their law firm. They wanted instant status updates. They wanted to know exactly where their case was at, how it worked, who they're working with, all these different aspects of transparency, really. And so with this type of technology coming out, law firms started to get an increase of phone calls of, hey, what's the status of my case? Or where's my case at? And it became burdensome to law firms. Obviously, lawyers love what they do. They want to talk to their clients, but it is tough when the expectation is at an all-time high. And so it's tough because you've got the bandwidth of the attorney trying to be met with how frequently the clients are asking for these updates. So that's like the challenge that a lot of law firms are seeing. But you don't want to give a poor client experience. You want to give a 5-star experience, like what Jay referenced. And so here's why this is important and why this relates to marketing. In 2019, Clio did a legal trends report where 59% of potential clients are still asking their friends about their client experience. When they're, if they're seeking a legal service, they're asking friends, family, acquaintances who they used to go get their provider for their service. 57% do research on the internet, and 16% do both. So that's kind of where you have the overlap of both. So if someone has a good client experience, it leads to 2 things. First is referrals. And I love, Jay, that you have Stacy talking about this at your conference in a few months, how to get referrals without asking. And that's like the core of why Hona exists, is to give people a great client experience so that they can get more referrals. The other part of this, and kind of the second result of having a great client experience, is this 57% of people that want to do their own research. They want to go to Google, they want to look at reviews, they want to go through those reviews and see what aspects of the firm were important to their former clients. So reviews. So if someone has a great client experience, they're going to refer you business and they're going to give you a good review, which in turn helps you get more business from people searching online. So just to recap, we've got this challenge where consumer expectations for updates are at an all-time high, but law firms don't have the bandwidth to give the updates that clients want. And it can be a huge boost to your business if you're doing a great job with client experience. So that's why we created the tool that we have. Now, I'm going to talk about a really cool AI update that's going on in the market, but I'll tell you a little bit about Hona right now. So we have a client journey software, and it connects to your case management software. So when you move the stage on your case from stage 2 to stage 3, or you complete some type of task you want to trigger a message to a client. Anyway, your client gets a text or a push notification on an app on their phone and gives them an update. So they feel like they're getting the same service they get with DoorDash or with Amazon or with their Domino's Pizza. And they're constantly getting updates, education, and communication about their case directly to their phone. So that is a little bit about Hona. I think you're kind of understanding how this works. I hope everyone's clear on how this works. But here's like the latest tech trends is what Jay wants to talk about on this webinar. Here's something that I think is really interesting. So Ed Kirk's company, Supio, even up a lot of these AI companies have had these voice agents, these agents calling clients of law firms and collecting information about treatment on their case. And that it's this crazy thing where your client's getting a phone call from a voice agent and it's asking them questions. Hey, which medical providers did you see this week? And so this technology is crazy to me, but we have incorporated this same thing into our platform. I love this has become, these little 3 sparkles has become the symbol for AI. But the latest trend in technology is that, like Hona, we're using these voice agents during the case process to do 2 things: to either call and give updates to your clients, or to call and collect information on their case. Once that information is collected, it pushes it into Hona and it pushes it into your case management software. So really cool thing. It's like on the cutting edge right now. This is what people are starting to use. I think a really good example of this I'm speaking to a personal injury firm. During a treatment phase, you could have the AI call a client and ask how many appointments they've seen, what they missed out on during their week, and how many appointments they went to, so that when you're collecting your information to write a top-notch demand letter, the AI has collected that information for you. So this is the latest trend that I'm seeing. And yeah, if you're interested in doing that with Hona, would love to talk to you. There's a QR code here and happy to answer some questions after when we do Q&A.
You did explain this to me on the webinar, but explain it to everybody else. How does the AI work in writing like messages for the customers and things like that?
Yeah, so it's really pre-programmed now. But what happens is when you're setting up something like Hona, you would say, during these phases of the case, I want you to do an outbound phone call to my client and just tell them X, Y, and Z that's happening, or collect X, Y, and Z information. So this is actually a newer product for us, Jay. But certain times it will call and do these things with the client.
Okay, cool. And same question I asked Ed. If somebody hasn't jumped in to any of this new technology, what's your suggestion?
Yeah, I think first of all, like Pat talked about this, go do the demos. And one thing and Pat, I'm sure she talks about this when she works with you, is like talk to your friends about this kind of technology. Go ask them about Hona, about case status of other firms and your local association for justice or your local bar association. ask them what they're using for client communication and AI communication and see if it's working for them. I'd say that's a huge thing. And then just doing demos to see what it's like. I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Awesome. Great job as always. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. And we are going to go to Daniel. You're wearing a World Series Blue Jays hat, Daniel. Why?
Oh, geez.
Based
I
in
hope that's
Toronto.
okay. Yeah, if there's anyone here from LA or post live webinar from LA, I apologize. Don't hold it against me. 32 years. Wasn't even alive when the World Series happened. So you have to understand the excitement here.
Now, did you earn your fan points? Did you stay up right to the end of that game 3?
Very close. 2:30 in the morning. Missed the last inning and a half.
Like,
I had work the next day. What do you want from me?
Yeah. I got to admit, I banked out at about the 8th inning.
Okay, there you go.
I figured out now, like if you don't get the score, you can watch these games in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
I figured that out. Get a good night's sleep. All right. So LawBroker is really cool. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and the LawBroker journey.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here. Super excited to be on this panel with a bunch of other people and great panelists. I think, Manny and I should have done we could have done a co-collab presentation because I feel like we have a couple of overlapping slides here because really it comes down to the client experience at first touch and throughout that case all the way. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about how do you think about digitally transforming your practice as a whole? So for those of you that aren't familiar with LawBroker, I know Jay mentioned that we're new. We've been around for 4 years. Jay, don't do that to me. You know how hard it is to convince lawyers that we've been around for a while. We have been around for 4 years. And prior to starting LawBroker, I actually managed the partnership organization over at Clio. So I knew Manny and his team back in the day before they were Hona and their rebrand there. But there's some great technologies here that I've seen on this panel during my time at Clio and other tools that I'm sure your firm has adopted back in the day when I was working with, the consulting and app ecosystem over there. But, about 4 years ago, I ventured off to start LawBroker. I saw a bit of a gap in the market on the way that consumers engage with law firms as a whole. And really the problem space that we were looking to focus on was how do you ultimately create these digital access points that emulate consumer buying habits? The problem that we saw prior to starting LawBroker was a lot of firms don't really guide the consumers through the legal process appropriately. It generated poor quality leads, low conversion rates, and naturally led to a lot of wasted time and resources across their overall organization. And we moved forward with a solution that ultimately helped pre-qualify and optimize the way that potential new clients engage with law firms. And it all stemmed from me not being a lawyer and me coming into the legal space with a bit of a different lens. And sorry, Manny, I feel like this is where that cross-contamination came in a good way. But really for us, it's how do you think about your day-to-day digital experiences and emulate those consumer buying habits and bridge that with your law firm? You think about all these different great experiences that you have online that bring you in to make purchasing habits and purchase decisions continuously, and you go back to those brands because you love the experience that they ultimately give you. And I think about brands like Uber and Amazon and Apple and Lululemon and all these different sort of digital experiences that I do every single day on something as small as my iPhone. And that's our core focus and ultimate vision when we think about LawBroker. How do we emulate these consumer buying habits in order to bridge that experience for your consumers to make it that much simpler when they engage with your law firm? So when we think about this as a whole, and Manny spoke about the legal trends report, which is great. I pull this from there as well. But as you think about the legal landscape, 78% of consumers ultimately are shopping for you online. So inherently, yes, you're continually getting referrals and phone calls, and those are great experiences that make your law firm continuously grow. When we think about the online transformation of a law firm, we have to ask ourselves the question of, have you focused on activating that channel of growth? And you start to work with firms like 10 Golden Rules and other marketing agencies and other systems in place to help drive that digital transformation and growth. But at the end of the day, are you creating experiences that lead those consumers into your inbox to ultimately help with that conversion element and taking lead to retainer in a much more conducive way to what makes the consumer feel well educated, but at the same time support the way that ultimately they want to engage with your firm And on the flip side of that, are you providing your firm with high intent data that standardizes the information so that you don't waste time on those dead end consultations and you can really take that client experience from first click? And that leads to making sure that you're ultimately meeting your clients everywhere that they are, right? Being visible and accessible no matter where those clients want to engage with you. There's 7 to 10 different ways that clients are finding you: referrals, social media, email marketing, Google My Business, AEO, like Jay talked about earlier, Meta, Avo, Super Lawyers, FindLaw, Lawyer.com, Google Ads. There's so many different solutions that ultimately your clients are engaging with you in. And your job as a law firm as a whole is to make sure that you're present in every single one of those domain expertise so that those clients can find you in an easier way. Because if they can't, that's where you start to lose to your competitors, and create these competitive disadvantages for your firm in order to continuously activate that new channel of growth. So you might be consistently driving growth to your firm and scaling in ways because you might be the largest in your market, or you are generating those referrals because you're using solutions like Hona, which is fantastic. But are you looking towards the future of activating a channel that ultimately isn't focused on driving growth to your firm right now? And that's the question that I always ask our potential customers and current customers. If you're thinking about scaling, what are some experiences and ways that you can ultimately brand yourself elsewhere to make sure that you're picking up clients no matter where they want to find you? You know, whether that be on social media, your website, they're activating through a call through CallRail, a chatbot function, or the digital experience that perhaps engages with LawBroker. And we park all this out to what we think about as the client-centered law firm. And this is something that ultimately I learned from Clio and the CEO of Clio and Jack Noonan. And, you know, he's written a book called The Client-Centered Law Firm. And the way that I think about the client-centered law firm is a true funnel. And I missed the 0.5 stage there, or the 0 to 1, but the 0 to 1 is working with companies like 10 Golden Rules and Jay. When you think about your marketing landscape and your marketing agency, their job is to ultimately drive growth and traffic to your business. Then you're funneling into tools like a pre-qualification system and a conversion tool like LawBroker. And I know that Jeff's going to talk about TRUEclaims in a moment, which funnels inherently into the CRM platforms that you might be using, from Alidify to Lead Docket to Clio Grow to Lawmatics and all the other tools out there, to ongoing case and practice management. And as Manny just mentioned, the Honas of the world, and as Ed mentioned on the Supio side of things, in order to create those client experiences and do the legalities and legal work with different tech tools, followed in through, again, that practice management. And finally, advocacy. If you're not thinking about your law firm from this perspective as a continuous funnel in order to drive that continuity and cyclical growth for your firm, that's something that you need to start thinking about in order to continually drive that growth mechanism for your law practice. And that's something that we preach every single day to people that we speak to when we're making recommendations on how you could scale, whether that's with technology or without technology, and ultimately continuing to think about how you can make sure that you're bridging your law practice in the same way that your client experience is across other tools and industries that you love every single day. The way that we do that at LawBroker is what we call through our digital storefronts. So we replace static contact forms with conversational workflows. And we essentially guide the client conversation down paths of quiz-like workflows to make it that much easier for clients to engage with you, provide you relevant and pertinent information, no matter where your clients are. So you would have dedicated links that could sit on all those different tools that I spoke about: social media, website, Google My Business, PPC campaigns, Avos, Lawyer.com, etc. of the world, in order to continuously drive that standardization and conversion mechanism for your law firm. And that's how we do that here at LawBroker. So if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, social media, email. But it was a pleasure being on this panel today and sharing a little bit more about how to think about your law firm and digitize it.
Great job, Daniel, and good luck to the Jays the rest of the way. The same question for you I asked Ed. Put it in simple language. Who's using the product and how are they using it?
Yeah, for our law firms, we work across every single discipline and practice area. So we are more focused on the transactional type of law firms. Sorry, I call it transactional, but the personal injury, criminal,
Yep.
family, estate planning, et cetera, of the world. But really, it doesn't matter what type of law firm you are. If you're thinking about digitally transforming your practice and thinking about a growth lever from a marketing perspective, you really should be exploring a tool like LawBroker in order to help scale that. The way that our law firms use it is in a couple of different ways. We do have a bit of a front end and back end solution. Predominantly, the way that our law firms are utilizing it is replacing their static forms with LawBroker's front end to increase conversions, optimize the client experience, and drive higher traffic and standardization into their CRMs. And from a back end perspective, really analyzing how clients are engaging with them and using the data that LawBroker provides in order for them to continuously scale and drive further revenue attribution into whatever marketing campaigns they're running.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for being here, and don't go anywhere because I'm sure you'll get
I'm
some
here.
questions
Awesome.
when we wrap up.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, Jeff. TRUEclaims is two things. It's a product solution to help attorneys make some more money, and Jeff's developed some amazing technology. So I'll let him explain it to you.
Okay, so property damage. This is an area that pretty much every personal injury firm tries to stay away from, try to avoid it like the plague, but it's hugely overlooked, and there's a massive upside if you do it correctly. So the way that most personal injury attorneys think about it is they say, I hate property damage. My case managers hate property damage. There's no money in property damage. It's not worth the time. And I heard countless times, I just do it as a courtesy for my clients as part of the bodily injury case. Okay. The ones that do handle it tend to do it in one of a few ways. One is they pay $500 to $800 to an appraiser, then 1 to 3 weeks to hear back, or internally an hour or two by a case manager that tries to scrape something together, which doesn't get the best results, or they just say, sorry, we can't help with that. Okay. There's a few important details to know about the property damage side, though, that are different from bodily injury. So because everyone is not interested in it, there's practically no competition. The money is not bad that you can make on this, especially if you're doing a lot of them. They get settled in about 1 to 4 weeks, so it's quick cash flow compared to bodily injury. There are so many of them out there. You can get fast Google reviews, and the biggest thing on the client's mind. And the common problem when you're, especially at intake, is when you're talking with a client and your people on the phone are talking with them, and the biggest thing on your firm's mind is the bodily injury, and the biggest thing on their mind is the vehicle damage. There's a disconnect there, and this allows your people to actually bridge that disconnect. Okay, so just to give you a couple stats, in 2022, these are property damage only claims with no cases with no injury or death. So the quantity of them is exceptionally high, and there's nobody capitalizing on it, or not too much yet. Okay. As a frame of reference, I have over 180 personal injury firms coast to coast on TRUEclaims. Okay. So there are two types of property damage claims that it's relevant for. So there's diminished value and total losses. Total losses are more straightforward for most people. Total losses is the vehicle was totaled, and then the insurance company is going to give an offer, and it's typically a low ball. It's probably a low ball about 95% of the time. And then how do you get your client more money and even make money yourself for your firm? And then there's diminished value. So diminished value is, there are law firms who are handling these. Diminished value, what it is, for those who don't know, is when your vehicle is damaged and then repaired, it has the Carfax on its record, even if it's repaired back to perfect condition. But so it has diminished in value. And if you're trying to sell it to somebody, then they're not going to buy it for the same amount because it has the damage on its record. So the question is, how much has it diminished by? It is not a black and white thing. So it comes down to how good the leverage you have to use to argue with the insurance company is. Okay. So I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough of how this is done through TRUEclaims. So you have a dashboard over here where you'll see new diminished value report or new fair market value report. You enter VIN, the miles at the time of loss, at the time of the accident, the zip code of the vehicle owner, the date of the accident. You select the type of report, diminished value or fair market value, which is for total loss. Next, you enter their first name, last name, and then you just click get this the button. It will find the vehicle. Then you click run diminished value analysis. The screen will change a little bit. You'll see analysis in progress. And in the background, what it's doing is it's hitting a bunch of APIs, tons of data points, and it's doing a lot of calculations within a matter of minutes. This is equivalent to about 2 to 3 hours by an appraiser. So a few minutes later, you end up getting an email to tell you that it's done. The page is updated and you have the option to buy the report. So this is like having an appraiser right there on the spot doing it for you. You buy the report, then you generate the PDF, download the PDF. This whole thing takes a matter of roughly about 30 seconds to do from buy to generate to download. Okay, here's a sample report. Every injury attorney always wants to see this. What does the report look like? So you see a rundown over here, shows you the diminished value. It shows you the steps taken. Here you can see the pre-loss comparable vehicles. You'll see each comparable vehicle. It breaks it down. By the way, there's practically no AI involved in here. It does this in a very systematic, step-by-step, very explicit, precise way every single time. It deconstructs all the package options on the vehicles. It adjusts them for depreciation. It does a mileage adjustment, and then it does a final adjusted value. So all of these calculations are very transparently laid out so that the insurance adjuster doesn't say, where do you get that formula from? And you see in a final adjusted value, it does that for every single comparable vehicle, and then it gets an average of them. And then for the post-loss comparable vehicles, does the same thing, deconstructing each one of them to get an average. And then it takes the difference between them, diminished value, and there's another step that it can incorporate, factor in the repair estimate also, and include that too. And then it tries to grab screenshots. It can't always find them, but that doesn't have any negative practical impact. So it throws it together in a report, and you'll see that this report is 14 pages long. Okay, so they're usually about 8 to 20 pages long. Okay, here's a real example. So this was actually the very, very first one. So the first live version of TRUEclaims was in December 2023. Here, the initial offer was $1,100. The TRUEclaims value came to $7,500. After some back and forth negotiation with the law firm, they settled at $5,700, which means a $4,600 increase. The attorney there was getting 40%, so he made a little over $2,000 for a tiny bit of work. And the vehicle owner, instead of making only $1,100, made somewhere around $3,000 something. Other features include redoing the report, a one-click demand letter, AI rebuttals, and also if you need to bring it to court. Okay, so the redo feature, what that does is it just allows you to redo it, but expanding the parameters of comparable vehicles. So you can see over here some examples of how the diminished value jumped up based on using the redo feature, from $300 to $7,000, from $5,000 to $11,000, and so on. You could see a bunch of cases. There's many more beyond that. The interesting thing is that it actually resulted in larger settlements also in, I think, almost every case where the redo was done. Okay, you'll see this one-click get sample demand letter, which opens up a sample demand letter and pre-inserts the details for you, so you can include the demand letter along with the diminished value report. And then you'll see this generate AI response. So what was found is that insurance adjusters could still push back a decent amount of the time, and they'll argue with it. And I found a set of common responses. I'm going to share it again in a second. Found a set of common responses that people tend to give when reports are done. And what I did is program that into the AI response generator, so it comes up with rebuttals for you based on the responses they're getting, so that you have an argument to send back to the adjuster in order to get better results on each one, and to make the settlement come faster and to get higher settlements as well. So you'll see over here, you plug in the email response that they give. Oh, we think it's only worth this, and it generates a response to combat their response there that you can send to them. Okay. For total losses, it's almost the same, but there's a powerful option to get settlements like this. It's called the appraisal clause. You'll see over here an additional $49,000 settlement on a total loss settled in 4 days. Here's a $16,000 extra on a 2007 GMC Sierra settled in 3 days. An extra $20,000 on a 2005 Dodge Ram settled in 7 days. And this one is $4,800 settled 42 minutes after sending off the report. There's hundreds of cases like this. So the interesting thing is the appraisal clause is something where you invoke it and it takes the ability to argue away from the insurance company on total losses. And it forces them and you to hire independent appraisers to go argue it out with each other and come to a settlement amount. And I have a huge network of independent appraisers that you're able to tap into at a click in order to help get to these kinds of settlements for total losses as well. Summary is, regardless of how you approach the property damage side of things, it's like a gold mine where there's no competition available. Nobody wants them. There's so much opportunity out there. The law firms around you will probably even send it to you, especially if they didn't attend this presentation. You go to them and you say, can you send me all your property damage claims? They will probably say yes. And it's also very profitable with volume. It's also an extremely powerful marketing tool, which is, I know, something that Jay loves. So you can be the only firm around advertising about property damage, and you'll stack tons of Google reviews. Okay. Just to conclude, a few things about TRUEclaims. You can start handling these today. So it generates it for diminished value and fair market value. It takes about 2 minutes to generate a 8 to 20 page report. You have the one-click demand letters. It costs nothing to run the valuation analysis on each one, and then you pay per report. The setup time, I've had firms sign up within about 1 minute and have an output report within 5 minutes with no training. And then what I've been getting a lot of interest from, especially within the last 2-3 weeks, I have a lead gen marketplace for diminished value. So I've partnered now with about 15 to 20 personal injury lead gen agencies who have nowhere to put their property damage only cases. So they're actually funneling them through to me to funnel them through to the law firms using TRUEclaims. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out. Yeah. And for those interested, feel free you can scan this barcode if you would like to get into to try it out, or you could just type this in. Either one works fine. Create an account, just run an analysis, and invite your case managers, and you can start handling it for your clients. That's basically the TRUEclaims side. But regardless of TRUEclaims, I think there's a huge opportunity in property damage that nobody's capitalizing on, or very few are capitalizing on. And there's a lot of money to be made with almost no competition in the space for that. That's it on my end, unless people have questions.
All right. So what I'd love to do is welcome all the panelists back. I'll start with a couple questions for the panel. And I sort of asked you guys some of the basic stuff, but maybe we'll start with Ed. Where do you see it going? What do you foresee for technology in 2026?
Well, I touched on this a little bit. I think we'll hear a lot more about agents doing tasks, and that, I imagine people will be delighted to hear about agents helping with your medical record retrieval. I imagine that will be a hot tool for people.
So just trying to dumb that down to my level and everybody else. Essentially what you do is you write a program with AI, and then you can have AI write the program that says, for medical record retrieval, go here, go here, go here, go here, pull all this data in together, put it into Supio or whatever your AI flavor is. And basically, instead of a legal assistant reaching out and doing all that hard work, the agents act as virtual agents and go and do that work. Is that correct?
Exactly right. So that's one example of it. There'll be, on the intake side, there'll be, for those with the appetite for it, AI agents actually doing the call. So acting like a human and being able to do it in multiple languages, take the call, qualify it, send a retainer. And then We're already doing this now in drafting documents. That's a key thing that people are asking for. And other modalities, like not just text, handling audio, handling pictures, handling video. I think those are the things that you'll see a lot of in the next year.
Jeff, why don't you take a crack at it? Where do you see tech in 2026?
Things are moving so quickly. Even the AI voice stuff, like I'm using it. I just building something out now for TRUEclaims to be able to handle like an intaking people. Like that's already here. It's already full on. I think any answers anyone gives right now are going to be obsolete in 3 months. I think my best answer to that is Pat could be a great person. It takes too much time and energy to stay up to date on everything. Try to find somebody who is staying up to date on everything, consult with them to figure out what's available, as opposed to spending hours and hours and hours and hours a week or per month trying to do it. It's going to take you away from running your law firm, and we have no clue where it's going to be in 6 months from now.
Daniel, why don't you pull out your crystal ball? Where do you see tech in 2026?
It's a great question. I think there's gonna be a lot of consolidation, and I think there's a lot of AI tools that are helping people scale. And I think that a lot of law firm adoption into those tools is going to help support them continue to grow and run their practices in a lot of different ways. But at the same time, accessibility of technology is going to become a lot easier. And these different sort of AI tools and agents, as Ed talks about, and things like that, are going to become common practice in the next 365 days plus. That is going to be very interdependent based off your role and the division within inside of each one of your law firms and so forth. So again, like not a direct answer, but at the same time, I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, and I think tech adoption is going to be on a per practice group and per sort of unit basis at each one of these law firms specifically.
Pat, where do you see tech in 2026?
There's no question that the adoption of AI is going to be more infiltrated into the firms that are 100% against it. And I love to tell stories about how some firms are so afraid because of the obvious bad press that some of the attorneys have gotten with research that they won't even use AI in Lexis or Westlaw. So I do see that there's going to be that peer pressure ultimately.
One of the things that was interesting to me, Sundar Pichai, the Google CEO, was asked about AI, and they said, it's bringing so much efficiency. Are you going to lay people off? And he said, no, it's quite the opposite. He said, we've got about 10% more efficiency. And so that's going to allow us to do 10% more of the projects that we couldn't get on our budget for the year. And I think there's a glass half empty, glass half full way of looking at all this technology and AI. And I love the glass half full approach that so many of us we're going to save money. Obviously, firms are going to take some profits, but it now gives you so much opportunity to invest in so many more projects. And we're certainly doing that at 10 Golden Rules. We have a question for Ed. For a firm that's curious but cautious, what's the smartest first step they can take to explore AI without disrupting their current workflow or putting client results at risk?
Well, you're perhaps getting together a committee, putting together people who are usually the first in line when technology comes along, and vetting it on one or two settled cases that you know well. I think that's a good start. And before you start there, talk about what you like to achieve. Talk to your paralegals, your associates, your partners, and what are the things that would make their lives better? If you've waved a magic wand, and maybe you come up with some things that you can demand from your vendors. You know, we're very much in a stage where people like Supio, we're malleable. We're here to listen to our clients to go in the direction where it adds most value to you. So if you get close to us, we may make your dreams come true.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here and doing a great job and staying on schedule. And I look forward to seeing everyone at TGR Live.
Thank you for listening to the 10 Golden Rules of Internet Marketing for Law Firms podcast. Please send questions and comments to podcast@10goldenrules.com. That is podcast@TENgoldenrules.com.